Hello, and welcome back to another episode of plantcare.club, where we care about your plants. On this show, we say we like to do three things. Number one, we talk about your plants, indoor and outdoor. Number two, we do product reviews, so we'll talk about soil, new plants coming to the market, anything we can think of, anything we can get our hands on. And number three, we answer your questions. So if you have any questions that come up while you're listening to this, please head to our website. That is plantcare.club, not .com, .club. And you can send in your questions right there. Also on the site, there's a ton of other information. There's a ton of other resources there. If you have other questions that you're looking for, you want to do a quick search for something else, yeah, please check out the site. There's lots on there. So who am I? My name is Fred. I have about 6 years in the horticultural space, working with plants both in Canada and the United States. Everything from spring annuals to garden mums, poinsettias, tropicals, palms, ferns, indoor plants, all those items. So yeah, a bit of experience with that. And we come at this show trying to use the experience of a grower and experience of the wholesale greenhouse and give you some tips and tricks on how to select the right plants or what to look for when you're actually shopping, what's new that's coming down the pipe, any of those kind of things. So that's kind of the idea of the show. Now today, we are still talking about poinsettias because it's that time of year. And the point of today's show is, where should you go to buy your poinsettia? So the idea of this is, hey, you haven't gone out yet, you have not looked for your poinsettia, or you're going to buy another one. Where should you be going? Where should you be heading first? So first off, I want to outline what the options really are. Now, some of this might be a little bit basic, but bear with me. So first, retail chains. Now, I've divided retail chains into two different splits because you do have what I would consider a higher end retail chain and a lower end retail chain. In Canada, there are most of the retail grocers. They have two different arms. One is a discount, one is a higher end. And the real difference is the discount will have less variety, less options, but they will have what you're looking for most of the time. They'll have one type of peanut butter. They're not going to have 3 or 4 different brands, but the higher end is going to have 3 or 4 different brands. Usually the higher end comes at a higher cost, but it's because they have more selection, they have a little bit more, and there's more going on in the stores. The higher end ones sometimes now have the freshly baked like lunches and dinners. They'll have hot food. Hot food, that's what I'm looking for, is hot food. So yeah, I'm sure that in your area you have thought about, or you can think of some retail chains that are on the high end and on the low end. Next up would be garden centers. Garden centers, staple, no matter where you are, there's probably a garden center in your area, and they are probably going to have poinsettias. If they stay open for the winter, they are probably going to have poinsettias. A lot of garden centers in our area will close down from right after poinsettias finish until usually sometimes just like March-ish. Sometimes that's when they close their doors till, because that's a relatively slow time of the year. They will do deliveries for Valentine's Day here and there, but most of the garden centers that we deal with and that we know, that's when they like to take their time off, is from right after Christmas till March, and then they open their doors for the spring again. So good news, garden centers, they will be an option. Fundraisers. Now fundraisers, they're becoming more of a thing. We keep seeing them more and more in the spring, and we see them more in the fall as well. So there are more school fundraisers, soccer, hockey, dance. We see a lot of dance clubs. If they're looking to do anything, really, there's fundraisers all over the place. For anyone that's listening, I forgot to click on my slide. So there's your retail chain picture. There is your garden center picture. So fundraisers are definitely a big thing for poinsettias. There are a lot of schools that will do fundraisers for poinsettias. Now, another consideration to bring up before you even think about which one of these options is best for you is you have to think about, are you looking for a novelty variety or just a regular red variety? So are you looking to have pink Are you looking for marble or bicolor where it's red and white, or red, white, and pink? Because some of those varieties are going to be more likely found at a garden center versus going to, let's say, a retail chain or a fundraiser. Um, for simplicity, sometimes the wholesale greenhouse will reduce the varieties that are available to a fundraiser because it can get very picky. The numbers can get a little bit smaller, and if you're packing up one or two of a certain variety, it then becomes unprofitable for the wholesale greenhouse. So if you're going to order through a fundraiser, don't expect that you're going to get the full slate of everything that they have. If you want to be picky and you want to look for a certain color, in an earlier episode, I mentioned a really bright highlighter pink and like a highlighter white, like super vibrant, very bright. That is what you're going to find at a garden center. You're probably not going to find it at a retail chain or at a fundraiser. So if you're looking for a novelty, head over to a garden center. That's where you're going to find it. If you are looking for planters, now in an earlier episode we did mention planters. If you missed that, a planter generally it has a poinsettia in the middle, and then it will have tropicals around the outside. So let's say it's a frosty fern. That's a very common one to have. Pothos, marble queen pothos, that's a common one. English ivy, they can be in there. Dieffenbachia, aglaonema, red, white, green is usually what the grower is looking to put into that pot. Now the advantage of having a planter is it looks nice, you've got all your tropicals, it's more cost effective to buy that planter than to buy all the individual plants and put them all together yourself. So that's another advantage. And then after Christmas, or once you're done looking at the poinsettia and it starts to look a little bit meh, you can rip that poinsettia out and put a different 6-inch tropical in there, and now all of a sudden you have a tropical planter. Or you can take all of the plants out and put them into their own little containers, get rid of the poinsettia, and now you have your own, 4-inch marble queen pothos, a 4-inch Dieffenbachia, a 4-inch frosty fern that you can look at then. So there are real advantages to the planters. If you want a planter, that's another garden center item. You're going to find these at retail chains too. Usually the higher end retail chains are going to have them. You can sometimes get them through a fundraiser. That one is iffy. That one will be hit or miss. It really just depends on what the fundraiser is. I would definitely ask if you're looking for that. Next up is the sizes. So it's important to note that these different chains are going to have different sizes that are available to you when you go in. So for a fundraiser, you're likely going to have 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, and maybe some larger 10-inch, 12-inch plants that are available. If you go to a garden center or a high-end retail chain, you're probably going to find the entire spectrum. So that would be from 2.5-inch, all the way up to 14-inch. They're probably all going to be in there. At a discount chain, remember, they want to offer the bread and butter. They don't want to offer all the different varieties. So normally what we see is 6-inch and 12-inch. That's what they have. They're going to have those two staples. Sometimes they'll do 6-inch in an 8-inch pot. It depends on what kind of a price point they're really looking to hit, but you're probably going to find a 6-inch that's a staple and likely a 12-inch. Another thing I forgot to mention here is in the sizes. If you are looking for something that's a little bit more upscale, you can find a 6-inch with 2 plants in it versus only having 1 plant in it at a garden center or at a high-end retail chain. So keep your eyes open. If you're looking for something that's a little bit different and that not everyone else is going to have, that's definitely the right thing to do at a garden center or at a high-end chain. Okay, something else to remember and keep in mind is a lot of the poinsettias that are going to all of these different options are going to come from the same farms. So a farm will likely pack up a 6-inch plant that could be going to a high-end retail chain. It could be going to a discount or a fundraiser. It could be going or a garden center, anywhere in between. Now, most wholesale growers will grow different varieties for these different settings. So, for example, when we're picking poinsettias for a retail chain, we have to think about when that poinsettia is in the store and what its life is like in that store. It probably gets hit with a cart. it probably has, a young kid that comes along and and grabs it and wants to play with it. So the key thing that a grower wants to think about is we want this plant to be strong. It has to be very, very, very strong. So generally the varieties that are sent to some of these retail chains are they have a very strong base and a strong stem, and they are called upright varieties where they grow instead of growing out, and I'm trying to explain this for anyone that's listening, so bear with me. So instead of the plant growing out to its sides, the plant is going to grow up straight up towards the sun, and it will have some breaking out, but not as much as other varieties that will really bush out from the sides. Now, if you want a plant that looks a lot more bushy on the sides, that's where you need to go to a garden center. Garden center, they're the ones that are going to have that. They are the ones that will take care of the plants, and from a wholesale grower's perspective, they're the ones that once you drop off that plant, they're going to put it on a bench. They're going to make sure that no one's running into it. They're going to make sure that it's being taken care of properly. So they are the ones that, if you want that really bushy, nice, great looking plant, a little bit more upscale, head over to a garden center. Okay, now I did mention structure, and here's what I wanted to say. I already mentioned the upright structure versus the out structure. Another thing that you want to look at are the number of bracts. So bracts is a terminology that is used in the plant world for basically it's like branches that come off of the stem and really help fill out and make that shape look great of a poinsettia. So when you're picking out your poinsettia, you want to look for a plant that has a lot of bracts, a lot of branching that's coming out from the sides. You can also pick up the poinsettia. Let's say you're standing in a retail chain. Pick up the poinsettia and simply shake it a little bit back and forth. Just tip the pot back and forth a little bit and see how the plant moves. If the plant moves, if you are done tipping it to the left and you start tipping it back to the right and the plant is still moving to the left or moving to the right, that plant has probably been through a lot at the store level, or it's the wrong variety for that space. So if you are tipping it to the left and it feels very strong, it feels sturdy, and it feels like it's anchored into that pot very well, that's the right plant to be in that place. And that plant has not been through the ringer. Maybe it's a little bit fresher. So that would be a great plant to pick. The next thing you should think about are the bottom leaves and how dark green they are. So if you're looking through 5 or 10 plants, check out not just the red or the colored leaves that are on top, look at the leaves below it. Now, if you're watching on the show, the plant that's right here to my right, I can just about touch it, that plant right there, you can see that the leaves on the bottom are a little bit more yellowy versus the plant farther away from me. Those bottom leaves are very dark green. Now, a dark green bottom leaf means that there's no nutrient deficiencies. When you start to see the leaves turning from a dark green to a little bit more of a yellowy color, that means that the nutrients in the soil that the soil does not have all the nutrients that the plant wants. And now the plant is saying, okay, well, if I don't have all the nutrients, I'm going to prioritize, but I'm going to get rid of these bottom leaves because I don't need them anymore. So check out the bottom leaves. That's an important place to look. Okay, that is all that I have on where you should buy your poinsettias and what kind of selection criteria you should think about. If you have any questions that have come up while you've been listening to this, please head over to our website, plantcare.club, and hopefully we can answer it over there. Until next time, I will say goodbye.